Hey, quick little video to talk about CMAX shock mounting. I want you to have a look at this in detail so you can find out where all the parts go when you get your kit. The way that we do this on the TM8 axles is you can see here that the leaf mount is right beside the shock mount on the axle housing if you're using a TM8. And there is a flathead screw you can see right here. And the flathead screw goes through a rubber O-ring and then through our tiny little shock eye, and then there's another rubber O-ring on the other side, and then you screw all that into the TM8 axle housing. And we would hope you would do the same on whatever axle housing you're using. Use the hardware that we've included with the rubber O-rings in order to give your shock, when it compresses, it gives it a nice little flexy, squishy stuff on the sides, and that seems to work really well for us. We're very happy with the smoothness of the travel on that, and it keeps the shocks from binding up and under compression. And that's how we mounted the shocks on the bottom of the TM8 axle. It's exactly the same setup on the rear housing. The rear housing has a very small hole in the housing at the bottom on the TM8. The back of the rear housing, and so when you do the O-rings on the rear shock, it's the same. We're using flatheads for all of our shock mounts, and the little rubber O-rings go on either side of the shock eye. You can see them just tucked right inside there like that, and that gives the shock some float and some a little bit of ability to flex along the screw. And do not tighten these screws into the plastic housing. Just turn them in just long enough so that the threads will catch and that the rubber O-rings on the shock eye is actually just touching the rubber. That's about all you need. So when we mount the top of the shocks on the leaf spring truck, we're using the same O-rings here with our recommended ECX 213000 shock. Of course, the shock comes with a coilover spring, but we've chucked that in the garbage. And so we're using the rubber O-rings here with the original shock mounting hardware gone, and just an M3 screw and the two rubber O-rings. And as you can see here, we put a nut on the screw, and then we screwed the entire package into the cross member in the back for our rear shock mounting. And what that does is it allows the screw to keep a hold of the shock and have the whole thing attached into the cross member nice and strong, and you can tighten down on the nut and not have to worry about compressing the O-rings. So it kind of acts more like a post mount instead of actually a clamping mount. You don't want to clamp the shocks. In the front, on the leaf spring truck, it's exactly the same situation. We've got the flathead screw mounted through the rubber ring, and then the shock, and then the second rubber ring, and then we have a nut, and the nut goes into the shock tower on the leaf spring CMAX, and that will complete our front and rear shock mounting. So we've got our leaf spring truck here with these fantastic shocks, and really happy. We will see you on the next video.